At 18, Clara Harrow stood in the grand ballroom of Ravenshire Castle, feeling like a sacrifice laid gently on an altar no one dared to name. Gaslights cast long shadows across marble floors, and those shadows seemed to whisper, just as loudly as the guests themselves. Clara wore an ivory gown chosen not for joy, but for duty. Her gloved fingers clutched a delicate dance card that remained completely empty, a quiet proof of how the night had already judged her. Around her, voices floated softly but sharply, like knives wrapped in silk. Women hid their mouths behind painted fans, and men lowered their voices only enough to pretend kindness. They spoke of her, as if she were already gone. "Poor child," one woman murmured, her tone heavy with false pity, "sold to a dying man to pay her family's debts." Another voice followed, colder. "The Duke of Ravenshire, they say he has months at best, a wedding bed meant to become a deathbed." Clara felt heat rush to her cheeks, but she did not move. Lady Agatha had trained her too well for that. Her back stayed straight, her chin lifted, her expression calm. Years of lessons had taught her how to endure humiliation without flinching. Tonight was no different, even if the weight of it felt heavier than ever. Her aunt appeared at her side without warning, fingers gripping Clara's elbow tightly enough to bruise. Lady Agatha leaned in close, her voice sharp and controlled. "You will smile," she hissed. "You have secured a duchy when you deserved a convent. Your mother's debts would have left us ruined, remember that." Clara nodded as she had been taught. Gratitude before dignity, silence before truth. Then the music stopped. The sharp strike of a staff against marble echoed through the room. The major domo's voice rang out, commanding attention with practiced authority. "His Grace, the Duke of Ravenshire." The whispers died instantly. Guests parted like water, revealing the man who had become Clara's husband just 3 days earlier. Sebastian Alden stood tall, broad-shouldered and unmistakably noble, yet leaned heavily on a silver-tipped cane. His face was pale, carved with sharp lines that spoke of strength worn thin by suffering. Though only 36, he moved with the careful restraint of someone much older. Every step he took was measured. The tap of his cane against the floor echoed through the ballroom, marking his slow approach. Eyes followed him with open curiosity, some with doubt, others with grim expectation. Clara lowered her gaze as he reached her. "Your Grace," she said softly, dipping into a perfect curtsy. "My Duchess," Sebastian replied. His voice was deep and steady, richer than anyone expected from a man rumoured to be dying. "I believe this dance belongs to me." A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Fans snapped shut. Someone gasped quietly. The Duke set his cane against a nearby chair and extended his hand. Clara hesitated only a moment before placing her gloved fingers in his. The orchestra waited, uncertain, until Sebastian cast them a firm look. Music filled the room again, and they stepped onto the floor together. His hand at her waist was light, but secure. He guided her with surprising grace, his movements smooth, controlled, almost effortless. If not for the cane waiting behind them, no one would have guessed he was ill. "You need not fear," he murmured close to her ear. "I shall not collapse at your feet and cause a scene." "I did not think you would, Your Grace," Clara replied, though her voice trembled despite her effort. "Yet you tremble," he said quietly. "The room watches us like vultures," she confessed, waiting. A faint smile touched his lips. "Then let them be disappointed." They moved together as if the world beyond the music no longer existed. When the final note faded, Sebastian escorted her from the floor before retrieving his cane. Applause followed, polite but stunned. Later, as they departed, Lady Agatha's approval was sharp and calculating. "You did well," she said. "A duchess before 19, and a wealthy widow before 20, a fortune few women can claim." Clara said nothing as the carriage doors closed behind her. Across from her, Sebastian sat in silence, gazing through the window at the fog-covered streets of London. "Do their words pain you?" he asked suddenly. She folded her hands in her lap. "I have been taught not to heed idle gossip." A safe answer, not an honest one. "We are bound now," he said after a pause, "before God and England. Yet we remain strangers." "As is proper in marriages of our station," she replied. His blue eyes studied her closely. "And is that what you believe this is?" She did not answer. The carriage slowed. As it did, Sebastian spoke again, his voice low and deliberate. "Tonight I will tell you why I truly chose you, Clara Harrow. And it was not for duty." Ravenshire House rose before them, its windows glowing warmly against the dark stone. Inside, servants moved quietly, and the weight of the night ahead pressed heavily on Clara's chest. Instead of leading her to their chambers, Sebastian directed her to the library. Firelight danced across towering shelves filled with books. A tea service waited between two leather chairs. "Please, be seated," he said. Clara obeyed, perching stiffly on the edge of the chair. Sebastian poured tea with steady hands. "Do you read, Clara?" he asked. "When permitted, Your Grace." "Permitted by whom?" "Lady Agatha believes reading encourages discontent." A short, dry laugh escaped him. "This library is yours now. No permission is needed here." He paused, then spoke again, his voice quieter. "Do you know why I chose you?" "Because of your title," she answered carefully. "And our family's history." "Is that what they told you?" She nodded. Sebastian reached into a small wooden box and withdrew a folded letter, its paper yellowed with age. "Do you recognize this handwriting?" Clara unfolded it, and her breath caught. It was her mother's hand. And before she could speak, Sebastian reached for another item, a small portrait hidden beneath the letter. Clara stared at it, her heart pounding, unaware that everything she believed about her marriage was about to change. Clara's fingers trembled as she held the small portrait. The infant's face stared back at her, familiar in a way that made her chest ache. The grey-green eyes, the soft curve of the mouth, even the shape of the brow mirrored her own. "Me," she whispered. "You," Sebastian confirmed. His voice was steady, but something raw lived beneath it. "Your mother sent this to me a year after her marriage. She wrote that she wanted me to know the child who might have been mine in another life." Clara felt the room tilt slightly. "You loved my mother." "With every breath I drew," he said. "She was forced to choose duty over love. When she married your father I lost her, but I never stopped watching over you." Her eyes filled with tears. "You watched me. From a distance, always. When your family's fortunes declined, when your aunt began planning your future as if you were currency, I intervened when I could. Invitations appeared. Certain suitors vanished. And when I learned you were to be married to Baron Weatherby, I acted openly. To protect me. To save you," Sebastian said. "And to keep a promise I made to myself the day I received that portrait." She lowered the letter slowly. "Then why this marriage? Why bind yourself to me when you are so ill?" "Because I am dying," he answered without hesitation. "The physicians give me perhaps a year. I wanted to secure your future before that happened. As my wife, you will be beyond your aunt's control. You will inherit everything. You will be free." Clara's tears spilled over. "You married me so I would be safe when you are gone." "Yes." Silence filled the library, broken only by the soft crackle of the fire. Clara looked at him, truly looked, and saw not a cold duke but a man who had loved deeply and suffered quietly. They spoke until morning light filtered through the curtains. Sebastian told her of India, of the illness that had taken hold of him years earlier, of treatments that failed, and hope he no longer allowed himself to feel. Clara listened, her heart tightening with every word. When dawn came, Sebastian's strength faded, his breathing grew shallow, his face pale once more. Clara noticed immediately. "You are in pain." "Always," he admitted softly, "but some days are kinder than others." She helped him to his chamber, steadying him on the staircase when his legs weakened. When he finally rested, Clara retreated to her own rooms, but sleep would not come. Later that afternoon, Porter arrived at her door, his face grave. "Your Grace, the Duke asks for you. He has taken a turn." Clara hurried to Sebastian's bedside. He lay drenched in sweat, his breathing labored, fear wrapped around her heart like iron. "I am here," she said, taking his hand. "I hoped," he whispered, "that you would not have to endure this so soon." "I am your wife," Clara replied firmly. "I will endure whatever comes." The physician spoke quietly outside the room. 4 months, perhaps 6. Clara returned to Sebastian's side with resolve burning in her chest. She would not accept this ending. Days turned into weeks. Clara learned the rhythms of illness and care. She sat beside him through the nights, read to him when his strength allowed, and listened when he spoke of books, politics, and memories long buried. Slowly, something changed between them. "This is no longer an arrangement," she admitted one evening. Sebastian's eyes searched hers. "What is it then?" "A marriage," she said, "one I choose." His hand tightened around hers. "You are too good for a dying man." "Then live," she replied quietly. "Let me help you live." She began asking questions. About physicians, about treatments, about a French doctor named Etienne Marot, who had once given Sebastian brief relief. "If there is even a chance, we must try," she insisted. "The cost would be immense," Sebastian warned. "Then, we will find the means." She sold her jewelry, wrote letters, pressed Sir Percival the Duke's solicitor for solutions. When letters failed, she acted. When obstacles arose, she challenged them. Lady Agatha came uninvited, her disapproval sharp. "You are throwing away your future," she said. "He will die regardless." "My future is with my husband," Clara replied calmly. The turning point came when Lady Agatha returned with men of law and medicine, questioning Clara's authority and Sebastian's competence. The room filled with tension and accusation. Before Clara could speak, Sebastian did. "I am of sound mind," he declared. "And I give my wife full authority to act on my behalf." He signed the declaration with a steady hand. Lady Agatha left in defeat. Dr. Marot arrived the following week. His methods were demanding, exhausting, and costly, but slowly, unmistakably, Sebastian improved. The first sign was his breath, then his color, then his strength. Clara watched hope return to his eyes. "Why do you fight so hard for me?" he asked one night. "Because love is a choice," she said, "one I make every day." By spring, Sebastian stood unassisted. By summer, he walked the length of the gallery, and when autumn arrived, London whispered not of death, but of a miracle. Sebastian stood beside her one morning, sunlight warming his face. "I lived to see this because of you," he said. "No," Clara replied softly. "We lived because we chose each other." And for the first time, the future stretched before them not as a duty to endure, but as a life they would build together. 6 months after the night everyone believed would be Sebastian's last, Ravenshire House prepared for a celebration no one had expected to see. The air smelled of fresh flowers, and sunlight poured through tall windows that had once seemed to frame only grief. Now they framed life. Clara stood before the mirror as her maid fastened the final pin into her hair. She wore a deep sapphire gown, the color chosen not by fashion, but by meaning. Around her neck rested the Ravenshire diamonds, cool against her skin, no longer symbols of rank, but of survival. In the adjoining room, Sebastian stood unaided, adjusting his cuffs. His reflection showed a man changed. He was still lean, still marked by the years of illness, but strength had returned to his posture, clarity to his eyes. He no longer leaned on a cane. He did not need it. When he entered the room, Clara turned, and for a moment neither spoke. Emotion filled the space between them, heavy and warm. "You look radiant," Sebastian said softly. "And you look alive," she replied, her voice thick with feeling. That evening the ballroom filled once more. Chandeliers blazed. Music floated through the air. The same society that once whispered of death, now buzzed with disbelief and admiration. Heads turned as the Duke and Duchess entered together, their hands joined without hesitation. Lady Weatherby stared openly. Sir James Blackwood stood speechless. And near the edge of the room, Lady Agatha watched in stunned silence, her certainty shattered. Sebastian guided Clara to the center of the floor. The orchestra waited. "Before the music begins," Sebastian said, his voice carrying through the room, "I wish to speak." The ballroom grew still. "6 months ago," he continued, "I was a man preparing to die. Physicians offered no hope, and society had already written my ending. Yet one person refused to accept that fate." He turned to Clara. "My wife stood against fear, against law, against expectation. She sacrificed comfort, fortune, and reputation, not for duty, but for love. Because of her, I stand here today." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sebastian extended his hand. Clara placed hers in his, her fingers steady. "I ask you now, my Duchess, for this dance. Not as a farewell, but as a promise." The orchestra began to play. They moved together across the floor, graceful and unbroken. Sebastian's steps were strong, his hold confident. Clara followed with quiet joy, tears glistening in her eyes as the room faded away. This time, no one whispered of pity. They whispered of devotion. When the dance ended, applause erupted, filling the ballroom. Guests rose to their feet. Some wiped their eyes, others simply watched in awe. Later, under the soft glow of lanterns on the terrace, Sebastian drew Clara close. "When I married you," he said, "I believed I was saving your future. I never imagined you would save my life." Clara rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. "You gave me freedom," she said. "I gave you faith. Together, we chose love." Sebastian smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Then let this be our legacy," he said. "Not a marriage of obligation, but a life built by choice." Hand in hand, they returned to the ballroom, not as a duke and a rescued bride, but as two souls who had defied fate and claimed something far greater than title or fortune. They had claimed each other. And this time the future belonged to them both.